to round things off, look into some homeostatic imbalances. Now, the first thing here is tachycardia. Tachycardia is a fast heart rate. Now, the key is it's abnormally fast, so it doesn't match your physical exertion, doesn't match your age bracket. A lot of times, your heart rate's over 100 beats a minute, and you're sitting still. Obviously, that's not where you usually want to be. Left unchecked, and if it continues on, tachycardia can lead to fibrillation. Now, fibrillation is not a regular heartbeat, it's an abnormal heartbeat that kind of just goes as it wants to. There's no set pattern to it. So tachycardia, elevated heart rate beyond what's normally expected. Bradycardia is an abnormally low heart rate. Now I have up here that it's slower than 60 beats per minute. Well, now you're saying, hold on, I actually have a heart rate in the 50s. Now, for the average individual that's not a trained endurance athlete, below 60 is not healthy. Now, if you're a trained endurance athlete, you might be trying to get your heart rate down in the 50s or even 40s. But again, that's if you're training for that and you're aware of what's going on. Because normally, for the average individual, a heart rate under 60 means that you're not getting enough blood to the rest of the body. So it's about making sure you have adequate blood flow to the rest of the body. Congestive heart failure. Now, congestive heart failure is a progressive disease quite often. What happens here is the cardiac output, CO, cardiac output, is low enough where the blood circulation doesn't match the requirements of the rest of your body. You simply can't get the nutrients, can't get the gases out to your tissues like you need to. Now, this can be caused by several different things. First thing here is multiple myocardial infarcts, heart attacks. So you could have multiple smaller heart attacks. Each heart attack could leave your heart with scar tissue. The scar tissue isn't contractile. That means it's not working properly. Another one is dilated cardiomyopathy. In dilated cardiomyopathy, the ventricle, usually the left ventricle, is becoming larger and larger. The walls are becoming thinner and therefore not having the same force and same strength to pump the blood out. And the last one is coronary atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is going to be the hardening of the vessels. So in this one, you're seeing an example here. This vessel in healthy state would have been about this size, the opening. If you notice, all of this is the buildup. It's a buildup plaque. It's made this vessel very hard and not really able to stretch and move like it should. By having this, you're now reducing blood flow and increasing blood pressure. Increasing blood pressure means the afterload is higher. The heart has to work more to get the blood out in the first place. All right, let's jump into a few developmental aspects. So basically how the heart forms in utero. Interesting to note is it starts as simply just two tubes side by side. But as development occurs, those two tubes come together to make kind of the basic star of a heart. Still two pathways. And eventually they kind of curl all in, forming more of what you'd expect to see as a heart structure. But it's all about starting these two tubes and kind of folding and curving until you end up with the two tubes still creating two pathways. Because the right side of your heart is still dealing with oxygen-poor blood. The left side is still dealing with oxygen-rich blood. So you still have two separate pathways. So those two tubes persisted right into the adult heart. Now, we've already mentioned these before. Mentioned foramen ovale and ductus arteriosus when we're going through the anatomy. They're important because they both are fetal structures that allow for bypassing the respiratory system. Because in utero, you're not breathing. Therefore, you don't need to put the wear and tear and have all the blood going into the lungs. Simply allow the blood to go from the right side to the left side and get back out to the body. So these both allow bypasses. The foramen ovale allowing the right atria to allow blood into the left atria. The ductus arteriosus allows blood to go from the pulmonary trunk right up to the aorta and out. But there are some problems sometimes, congenital heart defects. Now, these are problems as the heart is actually growing and just doesn't form quite properly in certain aspects. Now, the problem here usually is systemic and pulmonary blood start to mix. So the heart can still beat, the heart can still work, but now you're getting that blood from the left side, which is oxygen rich, being pushed back to the right side, which is the oxygen poor. Or blood on the right side, which is oxygen poor, just goes straight to the left and out without picking up extra oxygen. This can end up being because of narrowed valves, vessels not working properly, valves malfunctioning. There's a lot of problems that could occur. So looking at 3 different disorders here, we're going to have this ventricular septal defect first. You're looking at the actual interventricular septum never fully formed. There's a hole or a gap there. This allows blood to exchange between the right and left ventricle. Now, the left ventricle has a larger ventricular wall, so therefore it's stronger. So more left ventricular blood gets pushed to the right than right going left. But still, you're mixing oxygen poor and oxygen rich blood. So this is your ventricular septal defect. Next one up is going to be a narrowing of the aorta, the coarctation of the aorta. What's happening here is by narrowing the aorta, it makes it harder for the ventricle to pump blood through the aorta. So therefore, putting more stress and more strain on the heart, causing issues with that left ventricle. And the last one is tetralogy of Fallot. Tetra meaning 4. There's actually 4 different problems here. First off, you have the actual pulmonary trunk is narrowed. That means it's harder to get blood into the lungs. Then that narrowing of the actual pulmonary trunk means that this right ventricle is going to have to be stronger to actually push things through there. Then you also have this ventricular septal defect, the interventricular defect there. So you're mixing blood from the right to left. And the last one is the aortic valve is allowing blood from both the left and right ventricles to pass through. So you're saying, hold on, the previous septal defect, that didn't really make a difference because the left ventricle pushed. True, but because the right ventricle here is stronger, because of the pulmonary trunk issue, they're both equally pushing blood out into the actual aorta. So we have 3 different disorders here that are, unfortunately, heart disorders of a newborn. So some different disorders, as well as looking at fetal circulation just a little bit.